Hey guys, what's up? Murder of Birds here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to probably my biggest review that I have done so far for everything that I want to talk about regarding Red vs. Blue Season 8. I've just finished up Season 8, about to jump into Season 9 in a couple of days, and this is going to be my overall thoughts, opinions, predictions, speculations going into Season 9. As all of you guys know, I watched Season 8 all in one sitting. Of course, you guys got it week to week, but since then I have gone back, rewatched the series, did a lot of homework, did a lot of kind of analyzing and a lot of homework more than anything. I have a full notebooks page, actually 2 notebook pages full of stuff that I want to talk about regarding everything of Season 8, which was an amazing spectacle to watch. I also have a separate notebook here for all of the additional things that I want to talk to getting into Season 9 that I will brush up on in this video, as well as the intro of my Season 9 reaction. Also, really quick before we jump in, you guys probably noticed the background, but I finally have my Churchism poster. It's a little battle-torn. If you guys see the corners, a little bit of the corners were damaged when I took this poster down to put up my Volume 5 poster, and unfortunately the Rooster Teeth store doesn't have the Churchism poster. Unfortunately the UK store does, but I don't have access to the UK store. But nonetheless, Church is back on my wall. He's going to be there for the remainder of Seasons 9 and 10. He is my favorite character. That's an awesome poster, and I'm really happy that I was able to still salvage and be able to use it in the background. And there was a lot of outcry from people to kind of replace the poster. So that's back there for you guys. That's back there for me and the remainder of my reactions for Red vs. Blue Seasons 9 and 10 that I'm going to be getting out for you guys between now and the rest of the summer. But like I said, this is probably going to be my longest review that I've done for Red vs. Blue, because there is a lot to be said. There's a lot of things that need credit. There's a lot of things that I want to kind of go back and look at in terms of the lore and the plot of Red vs. Blue thus far, especially getting into Season 9. And one thing that I was really upset about, you know, watching Season 8 all in one sitting, and something that I usually don't like doing when it comes to binging series, is there wasn't any time for me to marinate. There was no time for me to stop and think and reflect on what I just watched, digesting it, applying it to what I already know, and then moving on to the next episode. It was very much watch an episode, holy shit, watch the next episode, holy shit, rinse and repeat. And a big part of my Season 8 experience that was a little bit tarnished was the fact that because I had watched it all in one sitting, I was putting episodes out week to week. So when you guys got an episode and left comments, there was a bit of a detachment between what you guys were seeing versus what I had already seen. So for example, when I started my episode 8 reactions and put them out, it was already, like, by the time the finale came out, I was already weeks away from already seeing that. So there was a bit of a disparity of you guys getting that experience versus me seeing it weeks ago. So moving onward with Seasons 9 and 10, at least right now, obviously I don't know how great those seasons are. I could be saying this right now, but then when I'm actually watching, I'll probably binge those too, depending on how good they are. But I do plan on at least going 1 week ahead of what you guys are at, so that way by the time you guys get an episode, there is no disparity, there is no detachment between having a conversation with you guys versus me being, weeks ahead of the game. And I want everyone to be on the same page, because there were a bunch of people who were leaving spoilers, and they were posting spoilers because they knew that I had binged Season 8. But the fact that I didn't want people, I didn't want people to do that, because number one, spoilers are spoilers, regardless if you know that or not. I don't want you guys posting stuff before it, I don't want you guys posting information or anything that's post whatever I'm posting to my channel. So if you guys are, talking about the Tex versus Reds fight in the first batch of episodes, hey, you're spoiling other people who are, believe it or not, there are other people who are watching RVB for the first time through my reactions. And I don't want that to be I don't want anyone to be spoiled. I don't want that to be a sour experience for anybody. And a special request for any of you guys who are watching the entirety of this video. I feel like the more dedicated audience of people who watch anything that I post or watch all of my Red vs. Blue videos are watching this, because my reviews don't get as many views as my reactions do, so that kind of weeds out the potential offer for people who are watching this. But if any of you guys would like to volunteer being mods for my Season 9 and Season 10 and beyond reactions, please let me know in the comment section, because I feel like Seasons 9 and 10 are going to be heavy territory for a lot of reveals and a lot of excitement and a lot of things you guys are looking forward for my first experience, and I don't want that to be tarnished by anybody. So if you guys are free, if you guys are willing and able to volunteer to be mods in my comment section for whenever I post Red versus Blue videos, I'd greatly appreciate that. Let me know if you guys are interested in the comment section, depending on, if that's all you're going to comment, or in your comment thread of whatever I'm going to talk about in this video. Let me know if you guys want to be mods, and I will make it happen. All right, guys, so with all that rambling and nonsense out of the way, I want to get into my overall thoughts of Season 8 as a whole. I have a bunch of different layers of conversation that I want to kind of get across to you guys in a bunch of different ways. I will be moving my camera over because I do also want to complement some of the animation that I'm going to be featuring on the side here to kind of illustrate my points and whatnot. But I am going to be breaking this down into a couple of different factions. So I want to definitely talk about Monty Ohm. I want to talk about Jeff Williams, my general thoughts and theories moving on with Red versus Blue, and kind of just giving an overall wrap up to the season as a whole. So starting off, again, like I said, I think it's impossible. It is absolutely impossible to talk about Red versus Blue, especially Season 8, without mentioning the man, the myth, the legend himself, Monty freaking Ohm. I watched Season 8, Episode 10, and I couldn't help but feel like Monty was still alive. A part of me was like, it feels like he's here. It feels like he's still alive, still kicking ass, still making awesome fight sequences and scenes. And, I mentioned this at the end of my Season 7 review. I mentioned this at the start of my Season 8 reactions. And obviously, throughout the season, mentioning the fact that this is the last thing. Seasons 8, 9, and 10 are the last things that I will ever see Monty have a direct hand in working on before his passing. I have seen everything that he's done. I've seen Dead Fantasy and Haloid before I ever saw Ruby. I saw Dead Fantasy and Haloid, which put the name Monty Ohm into my head. Eventually, down the line, obviously in 2013, I got into Ruby, and I remembered Monty Ohm's name from those two works that he did. I kind of went back through his catalog. I saw My Lacan and Icarus. And even now, after Volume 3, I kind of decided to go back to the origins of what built Rooster Teeth up as a company and what kind of paved the way for them to be able to make something like Ruby, which is why I got into Rooster Teeth and why I'm a diehard fan of this company who's been around for 15 years, and I only recently got into them in the last 5, but I'm incredibly grateful and humbled to be a part of this community, and, I feel like more than anything, Monty revolutionized Red versus Blue. For what I've seen, Seasons 1 through 7, I think that was the best Rooster Teeth could have ever done with it, in terms of plot, in terms of story, in terms of, comedy and everything else that they had going for it. But Monty was what was really needed to take this show from a pseudo-parody, semi-serious, form of storytelling to, even exceeding Halo. I feel like some people even consider, for me, for example, right? I never played Halo 1 and 2. I got into Halo during Halo 3 when it first came out, and I played Halo 3, Halo Reach, ODST, and Halo 4. I have not yet played Halo 5. I plan on doing streams on that on Twitch during the summer. But for where I got invested in Halo to where I kind of faltered around Halo 4, I've never been more invested in Halo than I am invested with Red versus Blue. Right? I think Monty helped take Red versus Blue to a medium where it surpassed its source material. It surpassed what it was basically not trying to imitate, but what it was trying to use to tell its own form of storytelling. And obviously it's synonymous with Halo because it's within the Halo engine. It's using the Halo software to tell a story. So I Monty just had an eye for choreography and animation, and if you know Monty, if you know his previous works, the Monty flair, and that's what it developed. That's what it delivered. And seeing for the first time the Warthog crash through the wall, right, and seeing all of these animations and movements that are impossible to replicate and impossible to do within the game. It definitely showed not only the limitations of what Rooster Teeth was capable of without Monty, but it also showed that through this machinimation, the next level that they could take with it. And I bless the man infinitely for being able to do that, because it allowed this medium to be to be taken a lot more seriously. And I think because of that, he got a lot more people invested in Rooster Teeth and Red versus Blue, and eventually Ruby, because that stylization that he had. And getting into some of these fights too, so obviously there were 3 core fights throughout the season, and I can only imagine what level of choreography and action and cinematography and everything else that's going to be happening with seasons 9 and 10. But Washington and Meta versus the Reds, I think that was the first initial wow factor for the animation. That was like a taste test of like, hey, I'm just getting started. This is a sneak peek of what you're eventually going to get with the rest of the season. And from what people have been telling me, like, Monty really decides to be like, yo, hold my beer with seasons 9 and 10. So I can only imagine, like, this is him, like, playing around with what he's capable of. Season 9 and 10, taking it to a whole new level, and obviously translating that to Ruby with the first 3 volumes, which was absolutely incredible. But Washington and the Meta versus the Reds in Valhalla was kind of like, holy shit, you see the 6 petals. It's like, why are there 6 petals with only 4 directions? Like, you see, like, it was just so freaking cool. Seeing the Meta jumping off of the freaking launcher, crashing into the Warthog, you know, like, doing all this crazy stuff. You see, like, all of the animation that's impossible to replicate in the Halo software. And it was absolutely insane. It was absolutely crazy. Like, that was the first thing. The wow factor of what I got, the wow factor from that initial fight of like, holy shit, this is the first time that I'm seeing this. The real time that I was just like, this is it, we're going for it, was Tex versus the Reds and Blues. And that was my favorite fight until the finale, but my favorite part of that fight in particular was the teleporters. I think Monty had an incredible eye for detail, and that in turn was what made the fight so much better. Obviously, we love Tex. We love, you know, we know she's a badass. We know she's on another level compared to the Reds and Blues, whooping all their asses, taking names. But the teleporters was such a cool concept because the initial part, obviously, she throws the teleporter at Simmons, fires his rocket, goes through one teleporter, comes out the other, blasts him up into that same teleporter that she threw at him, goes through that, connects to the teleporter right in front of her, and then she starts comboing his ass. And then she throws him again through one teleporter, you see him in the background going through another, and then he comes out of the front one that Griff is like pushing behind her, and she beats the shit out of him. And then the ending scene with the finale with the rocket and her like swooshing and, you know, flipping and turning through one teleporter, coming out of the other. Absolute spectacle. Absolutely loved it. And I think my favorite fight so far, and probably the best fight in the season so far, from what I've seen, obviously, is Tex versus Washington in the Meta during my finale batch reaction. And I could talk all day about the choreography. I can talk all day about like just the action in general, but I think what really sold me on that fight was the music, the environment, and the synchronization. Music, especially because Jeff Williams, again, coming in clutch. I think the first piece of music that he did for Red versus Blue was Tex versus the Reds, and then again with this fight. And the music that he used for this fight went so well with the environment and the synchronization of the action. And what I mean by environment was the scene where Tex blows up the mountain, and you have all of those like iceberg shards like blasting off the mountain, and you just see them all falling, and it's like Monty was paying keen eye and detail to everything that was happening. Like, your eyes are on the fight, but then all of a sudden you see an iceberg fall, and you see Tex move out of the way, and you see the Meta kick it, and then you see another one fall that launches her up in the air, and it's just the level of detail that kind of just goes over my head because all the crazy shit that's happening. And then the synchronization with all of the environment on top of like the Meta getting a few shots in and then getting pushed away, and then you know, Washington coming in and getting a few shots, and then, you know, going back and forth between them two. It was so incredible. It was so fun to just watch, and the animation was smooth. The choreography was really well done, and it was just a blast. It was just a blast to watch. And again, at the end of the day, I praise Monty because it was like that was really what was needed to take Red versus Blue to a completely new level of storytelling, beyond just being beyond being a parody, and even, like I said, surpassing the source material of the Halo series, which was incredible. So moving on from that, we obviously have to talk about, again, Jeff Williams, the dynamic duo of Monty and Monty's animation and Jeff Williams' music coming together to make something fucking awesome. And Jeff Williams actually debuted music, you know, making music through Rooster Teeth, through Red versus Blue. So Tex versus the Reds, as well as the track used for Tex versus Wash in the Meta, were created by Jeff Williams, as well as him having the first vocals that he's used for the Season 8 finale credit song, which I think that's just called Season 8 finale song. I'm not sure if that has an official name. I do plan on picking up the soundtrack for Seasons 8, 9, and 10 moving forward, because there are some callbacks to characters and scenarios and situations. Not as diverse or not as in-depth as the RWBY soundtrack, but obviously I still want to be able to listen to all of these awesome tracks as they first appear in the show, and then eventually getting the soundtrack. So obviously future tunes will most likely be worked on by Jeff Williams at this point. I think prior seasons was worked on by Trocadero, who did the initial the initial music for Red versus Blue, which is kind of cool. And I don't know when, but I think that along with Jeff Williams, I think Lamar Hall and eventually Casey, Jeff's daughter, eventually start their debut of music within the Rooster Teeth community through Red versus Blue, because obviously my first experience with music for Rooster Teeth was RWBY Volume 1 and the Volume 1 soundtrack. Obviously, the color trailers all had music. There was music throughout there was music throughout Season 1 with like Wings and Red Like Roses Part 2, and then obviously the soundtrack came out, and that was the first time I ever heard Casey. I think she was like 14 when Volume 1 came out, and I was like blown away by how young she was and how much of a great job she did on the music then, and she's only evolved since then. And then obviously Lamar Hall was on the track with the Yellow trailer, so I'm pretty sure that they had their introduction into music through Rooster Teeth was from Red vs. Blue along with Jeff. So I'm looking forward to seeing and listening to more songs down the line and seeing if they ever come into the picture. But there is a particular moment that I want to segue and kind of let you guys know about if you guys haven't. So early last year, I did a Q&A interview talk session with Jeff Williams in my Discord server. It was exclusive for my patrons at the time. The whole interview is up on my YouTube channel. I will leave a link in the description, but there is a segment that I do want to feature here for those of you Red vs. Blue fans who might not know about Jeff's initial origins of how he got into music, how he got into Rooster Teeth, and what allowed him to be able to eventually lead into creating music for Red vs. Blue and what eventually led to RWBY. So I'm going to cut away for that for those of you guys to check that out. It is a sneak peek. And like I said, if you guys want to hear the whole interview of hearing all the, Jeff's musical process and all those extra things regarding Jeff Williams and his work on RWBY and Red vs. Blue and everything else, link to that will be in the description. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys back in a second.
What got you into Rooster Teeth?
What got me into Rooster Teeth was that I had a studio, and I just worked with bands and artists and things like that. So I mostly was doing recording and mixing. I had a friend that I worked with named Wendy Middlestat, and Wendy was in this local Boston band called Trocadero. So Nico, another member of Trocadero, was the guy who went to Matt and Bernie and said, "You really shouldn't steal Limp Bizkit songs for your show. You want me to write you some music?" And they were like, "I don't know. Is it going to cost us anything?" And he was like, "No." And they were like, "Sounds good. Let's do it."
That's how it all starts.
It's that right. So Nico started writing music for Red vs. Blue, and he brought his band Trocadero in on it. So basically, they came to my studio to record the first Trocadero album that had like Blood Gulch Blues and a girl named Tex on it. So Nico and I got along pretty well while we worked on that first CD together here, and then they were gonna do another show called The Strangerhood.
Oh God.
Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah, so that was just a one season show. It's actually pretty. It started out real slow, but then it actually got pretty funny. And the music to it's actually pretty good. So Nico asked me if I wanted to work on Strangerhood music, so we did that together. And then Wendy Middlestat left Trocadero, so I kind of filled in playing keyboards in Trocadero, but I didn't really write music for Trocadero. And so I just kind of did that for a little while, and then when they got Monty, they were like, "Well, we need some more action music." And, Nico and Martha from Trocadero were like, "Well, ask Jeff. Maybe Jeff could write some." And I was like, "Well, I don't think you're really asking the right guy because I don't really write music, but I can try. if you're really that desperate. So the first thing I did was, Tex fights the Reds, and then Matt was like, that was great. Kids want to buy the music. I'm like, why would they want that? And he's like, we don't ask that.
We don't ask questions.
This is Rooster Teeth. We don't ask that. If they want to buy it, we fucking sell it to them. And I was like, sounds good. Works for me. So then next week was just like the ice fight thing. So that was like the second thing that I wrote for them, I'm pretty sure.
So you got into songwriting from from Rooster Teeth then?
I did.
That's pretty cool.
I did. I learned how to write music in front of everyone, with everyone watching, is how I learned to write. Like it was scary.
Nerve-wracking.
It's still scary. And it always has been. Like I've always, but yet it's actually been the blessing for me, because I always wanted to write, and I just really didn't. I was just kind of like, well, I don't really have a good reason. Like there are other people who are writing perfectly good songs, and no one really needs me, so I'm good. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And I worked with music with other people, but I wasn't really a songwriter or a composer. And Rooster Teeth just kind of like kept making me write new music and put it out in front of everybody, like way before I was ready. So I just it was kind of like the best thing, you know what I mean? It was like I just learned how to do it like on the fly.
So like I said, I think it's super awesome that Jeff Williams is only flourishing and growing, from his origins of Season 8 of RVB, moving forward, and going as far as, Ruby Volume 5, which his soundtrack just came out. And I hope you guys enjoyed that little extra sneak peek. Like I said, the whole interview is in the description if you want to check that out for yourselves. And moving on from there, I'm going to get into my general thoughts and theories. So this is where things are going to get good. So this season had a lot of surprises. The first big thing, obviously the first thing I experienced hitting play for episode 1 of Season 8, Doc is back. I don't even remember the last time I saw this guy. I think the last time I saw him was Season 6, I want to say. Like early Season 6. Either Season 5 or Season 6. It's really escaping me when the last time we saw Doc. I know he was still in the Blood Gulch Chronicles towards the end, before, everything that happened with Cappy and Omega and Tex and everything like that, and Junior and Andy and, them getting away. But I didn't remember. I had no idea, when's the last time we saw Doc? Right? Like, the whole O'Malley situation had come and gone by that point. So I was like, is he dead? Are we ever going to see him again? And lo and behold, he's a pacifist, so I didn't expect him to stick around for the Reds or the Blues. But at this point, I do hope that he becomes a staple moving forward. It's kind of funny how he's a prisoner to the meta and to Washington, but Washington doesn't really play a good bad cop when it comes to it. Like, it's almost like bad cop, like he mentioned before. But he's more of like... He's kind of like a willful, he's kind of allowing himself to be held prisoner instead of, at some point, he could have easily just left if he wasn't a pacifist in that regard. But seeing Doc was absolutely amazing. Lopez got shot, and I know that he backed himself up on files before the end of Season 7, but I was really surprised that we didn't end up seeing him again. So he's been MIA thus far. Moving into Season 9, I don't know if I'm pretty sure Season 9 is a prequel. I do have my thoughts and opinions on that, but Lopez's appearance is something that I'm wondering when we're going to see again, because he came back, made a bunch of vehicles for people, got shot, and then that was that. So I assume we're waiting for him to boot himself up, a new body, or a new, whatever, a new entry for him to come back and, be a part of the picture in the grand scheme of things. Phyllis, the freelancer integrated logistics security system, I think that's what it's called. So Phyllis was a really big surprise, because I remember during the Blood Gulch Chronicles that was her original name. I thought it was like PHY, like LLS or US or something like that. Like, I didn't think it was an acronym. I thought it was like Phyllis, like an actual name. So she's back. And this was pre-Sheila, like she was basically rewritten as Sheila when Church went back in time and everything like that. I like the interaction between her and Caboose, because, obviously Caboose had a big crush on her. So I do have a theory. regarding Phyllis and regarding the Alpha that I will talk about a little bit later, towards the end when it comes to my Project Freelancer predictions. But Phyllis being around and being really basically kind of almost like being the personal assistant of the director, it would seem, it kind of rings up some questions for me for why Phyllis was also still around the Alpha when he was in Blood Gulch. So I will get back into that in a little bit. Donut being alive was one of the happiest moments that I remembered in the entirety of this season, and it was a deleted scene that's only featured on the Rooster Teeth site, and a lot of people actually hadn't seen that scene either, and I was wondering, like, why would they take this out of the Red vs. Blue YouTube channel when it's kind of relevant to continuity of why Donut is back in the first place. So I was really happy again for the individual who sent me that comment and let me know about that scene, because, you know, if that wasn't in there, there would have been like a level of like, wait, what the hell? Like, how the hell is he back here? And then the whole recovery mode thing, which goes all the way back to the Blood Gulch Chronicles with Sarge getting shot in the head, and he wasn't dead, he was basically just in recovery mode. Great use of foreshadowing and great use of like references and callbacks to that moment that kind of make sense of why what happened to Sarge, the same thing that happened to Donut, and so on and so forth. So I think that was great on Bernie's point in terms of the storytelling, and that's why I feel like it's such a rich story, because there's so many things that happen, and then you can actually go back and watch from the beginning and see how the context clues and those little bits of information and those subtle scenes make for a bigger picture once you get to the big shebang of a reveal. So I thought that was really neat. So with all that said, before we get into my theories, predictions, and analysis, I kind of want to show you guys or showcase my 5 favorite moments of my reactions of Red vs. Blue Season 8. And this is something that I don't think I did in Season 7, 6, or the Blood Gulch Chronicles, illustrating 5 moments that I really enjoyed throughout my watch. So these are going to be back to back, but these are 5 moments extracted from my reactions to feature in here to let you guys know. These were probably funny scenes, heartfelt scenes, or just moments that I really appreciated. So these are my 5 favorite moments from Red vs. Blue Season 8.
Okay.
Oh, geez. Watch Simmons just roasts him.
You're so fat you broke your arm and gravy came out. To be questionable, if not downright mediocre. Not insults for us, Simmons. I don't understand the rules of your stupid game. I just got here.
Nah, you guys are idiots.
We need something to make him mad. Really mad. Has he seen the last episode of The Sopranos yet? Get them, Meta. Get them.
Washington! What? No!
Memory!
Open it up!
The director remembers Wash! Oh God, Griff, he's still falling down, isn't he? I'm pretty sure I know what's gonna happen.
Why won't you just kill me?
Jax.
Oh?
Ask you two a question. You ever wonder why we're here?
Oh my God! Oh!
It does seem to be one of life's great
No, I mean you. What are you doing here? You always act like you want to quit, but hell, you could have left whenever you wanted.
Oh
no one would have stopped you. But why are you
my
here?
God!
And you, me? Say you want to be in charge. They would have given you your own squad a dozen times over. You know it, and I know it. But you're still here.
Yep.
And you, Tucker.
We're just a big, happy family. We all love each other.
I am? I know you like to make your rude comments and pretend like it all doesn't matter. But an entire
Yo, Sarge is like fucking...
So why are you
He's
here?
going ham right now.
And Caboose.
Caboose, yeah, you got nothing.
Good to see you.
I'm really enjoying the speech so far.
Maybe
Yeah.
you're all here because this is the only place you fit in.
Yes.
Maybe you're here because you don't have anywhere else to go.
Yes!
Maybe you're all here.
Fucking love this speech right now.
Want to be here.
It's like he's talking to us.
Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're here. For all we know, Tex and Church are dead. That means we're the only ones who know what's happened. The only ones who can prevent them from covering it up. So the way I figure it,
This is such an impassioned speech.
will use us, take us away from our families, and send us all over the dadgum galaxy just to test if their agents are ready for the big fight? Well, I guess I'm interested in showing them exactly what a big fight is all about.
Get him!
Time to clean the slate.
Good shit, dude.
I'm not ordering you to go. I ain't even asking. You do what what you gotta do, Private Griff.
Hey, he's like,
I'll go get my car keys.
All right then.
that's all it
Let's
took.
do.
I don't think a Jeep will get
Oh
there
my
soon
god,
enough.
I loved that so much.
What I've learned is that a great love is a lot like a good memory. When it's there, and you know it's there, but it's just out of your reach, it can be all that you think about. You can focus on it and try to force it. But the more you do, the more you seem to push it away. But if you're patient, and you hold still...
Oh god, Church, please,
maybe,
it just feels like he's saying
just
goodbye.
maybe, it'll come to you. I just need to make sure I'm somewhere that she can find me.
Chief will find me? What?
I think this place is a little different than it was before. See, out there, everything is based on the alpha. But in here, well, I guess I'm the alpha. And maybe this time through, things will be a little different for me as well. I guess I'll find out.
Hey, Church, come on.
Oh!
I think the Red's got a new vehicle.
Oh!
They only got a Jeep. We got a tank. That's way better.
Okay, I'll be right there. And I mean, hell. If you have to live the rest of your life in a memory, you might as well make it a good one.
Oh, man! Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that top 5 moment, and if you are still watching this, I am gravely sorry. I think this is a really long video in and of itself. The runtime is already really long as it is, but this is the point where I'm going to get into my breakdown, my predictions, my analysis, and my overall thoughts of what we've basically been able to extract from Season 8 of RVB moving into Season 9. This is the part where I'm going to kind of break down my thought process of what I've been able to understand and put together and piece together and predict moving forward, and this is kind of the part that I feel like a lot of you guys are looking forward to. So, Season 8 basically revealed one core factor, or one core concept that I was able to pick up on before the reveal ended up happening, being Tex's, basically her identity as the beta. Not only that, but what she is based on regarding the alpha. We found out that she is in fact the failure. She is based on the failures that the alpha or the director remembers of her because she didn't survive her war. She ended up dying somehow. Either she died in the war or she died of natural causes. Regardless of the fact, Allison died, and that was the last thing that the director really, that really stuck with the director, which is she died. And as a result, that is a failure concept, which eventually kind of leaked its way into the AI of the beta, being Tex. And that's why no matter what, she fails. And I kind of even went back, and this is, again, this rings true with the recovery mode moment that I mentioned a little while ago. But when you find out about this failure concept, and it's just like with the alpha as well. When you go back and you rewatch Red vs. Blue episode 1 all the way up until this moment, there are so many context clues, right? Blood Gulch Outpost Alpha, you know what I mean? Like, just moments like that, like, right, recover, like, you know, security breach, level Alpha, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a lot of those moments are just like, holy shit, they've been leaking and talking about and teasing the Alpha from the very beginning. And then you look back here with Tex's failures. She failed to kill the Reds. She actually got killed by a Red herself. She got killed by Donut with his Hail Mary throw, which got her initially killed. She failed to stop Gamma. She basically failed to save York. She ended up getting him killed, or, you know, eventually, you know, that her hand and all of that led to York being killed. She failed to save the Alpha during the Freelancer break-in, and there's probably so many others that I kind of glossed over, but those were the initial ones that I was just like, holy fuck. Like, if I had just stopped and applied, like, I mean, there's really no way I could have applied it to that extent until I found out that she was the failure to go back and then apply it that way. But when you look at it, Tex has been failing ever since she got here. You know what I mean? Like, she's had, you know, a lot of close calls. She's had a lot of, like, hoorah moments, like fighting the Reds and Blues and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, all of her objectives have failed. She never stopped Wyoming. She never stopped Omega. She never, you know, saved Alpha and stuff like that. And I think that concept in of itself is just really crazy to kind of go... I think that's, again, what makes for a richer story. When you sprinkle little bits of information here and there, and then boom, you get the payoff, and then you go back and see how that all led up, and it's like it's been in your face the whole time. I think those moments make for richer stories than anything else. So payoffs are incredible. I absolutely loved that. And so I wrote a lot of stuff right here. All of this stuff is basically kind of, well, this bottom part is my predictions for Project Freelancer, but this upper part right here is something that I felt like I was missing something. And again, this comes back to the reason why I didn't really like binging season 8, because I kept watching it, and as I was watching, I just kept asking questions. I was like, why, how, who, what, when, where, and there was no time for me to stop and think, because it was like, watch, wow, move on, next episode. And I'm not used to watching Red vs. Blue like that. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, hey, you could watch a lot more Red vs. Blue in a day if you just binge the whole thing. And I'm just like, well, I personally don't like binging episodes. I don't like the binge experience. I like watching episodes weekly. It gives me something to think about, to marinate on. It gives me a, moment, gives me a stretch of time to talk about it with other people, and, be a part of the zeitgeist, be a part of that conversation, and kind of see how things unfold over time. So I think I've been able to put this together. So this scene that I'm going to show you right now was a moment that kind of went over my head initially when I first watched it, but is what has allowed me to be able to understand more what happened to Tex and how this Tex is in the picture because of Epsilon. Check it out.
How did you know how to bring me back?
Honestly, I didn't have much choice. I couldn't get you out of my head, so I kind of had to get you out of my head.
I couldn't get you out of my head, so I had to get you out of my head. Okay? So now, it kind of puts a little bit more into perspective how Tex came back. And initially, I thought it was like, is she stored there? Like, what exactly happened? How is this Tex here when the original Tex died in the Emp attack with all the other AI with her? And so on and so forth. So, hear me out. And more than anything, I don't want you guys to confirm or deny anything. For this theory that I have, or this analysis that I'm about to break down to you guys, I just want you guys to clarify anything for me. So, anything that I say, if it's wrong, I want you guys to correct me, but don't give me a clear-cut answer if my theory is in fact wrong. So the first thing that I'm going to deduce, or kind of let you guys know what I think, is the Epsilon is a carbon copy of the Alpha. In a sense, he is not the true Alpha, he is not the original construct of the Alpha. He is the closest thing to the Alpha. The Alpha is gone. He's no longer around. He's been destroyed. So Epsilon in and of itself is a carbon copy. Obviously, he's a carbon copy of all the memories and stuff like that. Pre-Blood Gulch, of course. But Epsilon, you could consider Epsilon the Alpha at this point, okay? And the Alpha still has all of the other components of the artificial intelligence. He has beta, omega, delta, gamma, theta, sigma, and so on and so forth. So Alpha still has the components of the other AI within him. So when he says, I couldn't get you out of my head, so I had to get you out of my head, does that mean that Epsilon utilized a similar yet tortureless method of creating a new Tex? So what I mean by that is, we all know how all of the other artificial intelligence were created. He was tortured. He basically broke those parts of his emotions off to kind of contain himself. And those bits of emotion were then compartmentalized and harnessed and created new AI. So what Epsilon basically did was the same thing, except he didn't need to be tortured. What he ended up doing was fragmenting the memory of Beta into its own self, and that is what we get as this new Tex here. So this Tex is not the original, because again, similar to Alpha, she had to be told all of the stories from Caboose and the Reds to kind of fill in the gaps and kind of be the closest thing to the original, but she's not the original. So that was the first big step that I had to kind of understand and put together. So I want you guys to let me know if I'm on the right track with that, because then I'm going to branch off and talk about something else that correlates with that. Epsilon was able to utilize a similar yet tortureless method of creating a new Tex. not the original, and it also had to be told those stories to be able to kind of identify with what the original text was. So essentially, similar to how we call Epsilon Epsilon Church, we can call this one Epsilon Tex. And if that's the case, does that then mean that we are going to, theoretically, okay? Does this theoretically then mean that we can get a new strand of artificial intelligence based off of the ones that we had before? So right now we have Epsilon, we have Beta, aka Tex. Does that then mean we can get an Epsilon Delta, an Epsilon Omega, an Epsilon Gamma, an Epsilon Theta, an Epsilon Sigma, and any other AI that are out there that we haven't got yet because they are originally from Epsilon? And Epsilon is the memories of all of those artificial intelligence, pre-Blood Gulch, of course. If he does make an Epsilon Delta, he won't have any memories of York because this was prior, or at least I think so, it's prior to Delta knowing York to be able to have that attachment. Similarly, if he ends up creating the artificial intelligence for, say, Carolina, for example. Carolina had 2 artificial intelligence. So if we eventually see Carolina in the present, those artificial intelligence shouldn't remember her if there's ever a reunion between them. So, and this is what, and see, like, I put it, so you guys can kind of get a better understanding of what I mean here, right? So they created a new Tex, which forms Epsilon Tex. So if that's possible for them to create a Tex, would there ever be a situation where Epsilon would have to create more artificial intelligence based off how it was done originally, except he doesn't have to torture himself to do it, he just has to get him out of his head into, I guess, a corporeal form? Or unless they can just run scot-free into another, or unless they can run scot-free into any freelancers that are still out there. Like, I expect Carolina to still be out there. I don't really know from that point on because there's not a lot of other freelancers in the area. So Carolina's the only one that I can really expect. And again, with that too, it still comes down to the fact of, like, is Carolina ever going to, like, is Project Freelancer, is not seasons 9 and 10 a prequel story? Or is it a moment that takes place in the present? So we still have to worry and think about that. But I think that, I don't know if I'm crazy in thinking that we'll have a new generation, a new set of AI based on Epsilon instead of the church, based on the Alpha, because Epsilon is the closest thing to Alpha. I would say he's a carbon copy of the memories of the original. So in that regard, similar to how he made Tex, he should be able to also be able to make all of those other AI as well. So I think that's crazy. Also, really quick, can someone answer this for me? I don't care if I don't know if I care to get spoiled, but if it's not relevant, then I don't mind. What the fuck is Vic then? Vic is an AI, right? Like, I don't know. Vic is still like an anomaly to me. Like, we don't even see him again. I don't know if he was just there to be there. And this is the reason why I want to bring up Vic. And this is the reason why I kind of want your guys' opinion on this matter if you guys don't know the answer, all right? So what I want to talk about regarding Vic is based on what Tex says right here. Check it out.
He was being tortured. The director had even started to use some of the other AI against him. Think about that. Turning his own pieces against him? It's sick. Gamma and Omega would fabricate scenarios where he was designed to fail. And they made it seem like his failures were hurting all of the people he cared about, and there was nothing he could do about it. It drove him mad. Broke him down even more.
So in that scene, Tex is talking to Epsilon about, like, how the entire process went with the freelancer break-in, how she led the break-in to try to get Alpha away from the director and everything like that, because obviously they were torturing him. And she mentions that Gamma and Omega were forced into basically setting up these fake scenarios, or these failed scenarios, where the Alpha would eventually lose in every situation, and thus that would allow him to create even more artificial intelligence. Is she talking about Blood Gulch? Is she talking about, like, seasons 1 through 5, right? The scenario with O'Malley, the scenarios that happened with O'Malley, the scenarios that happened with Wyoming, the scenarios that happened with Vic for seasons 1 through 5, were all of those, was everything that was happening, despite it happening to the Reds and to the Blues, was the ultimate goal for all of that to get Church, OG Church, to break down even more and create even more artificial intelligence. So what we were watching, right? Like O'Malley coming into the picture and fucking with everybody and messing with Doc and messing with Caboose and everything else like that. Obviously, I think a bit of a scenario kind of happened because, Church ended up dying. But like, with all of that, was that the original plan? Were they trying to still, to that point, even after Project Freelancer, were they still trying to create more artificial intelligence for him? And then on top of that, we go back to Phyllis, because Phyllis was the fucking tank, right? You give the biggest level of manpower to the blue team, Blood Culture Outpost Alpha, because the Alpha is there. Was Phyllis there to oversee Church's protection? Was she there to make sure no one came after him? Was she there for basically to kind of not only oversee him, but to make sure things went accordingly with what Gamma and Omega and Vic were trying to do in harboring more artificial intelligence? That is the key point that I want to know. I don't want you guys to tell me, in case that's the case, in case that's the fact. But leave your thoughts on that little bit of that food for thought that I have right now. Because if that is true, that is like next level foreshadowing from Bernie. I have no clue. Like I'll be fucking colored impressed if that is the fact. If that is indeed what the whole scenario was going for, even to that point. They were still trying to get more artificial intelligence. They were still trying to fuck with the Alpha, even after the fact that they had to relocate him from Sidewinder after the break-in, put him in this random box canyon, have Phyllis overlook it because she's the freelancer logistics, security system. She oversees the Alpha. She's the personal assistant of the director and everything else, and how everyone was in on it. And that's why I think maybe maybe that's what Vic's original purpose was, to kind of be the centerfold of making more artificial intelligence in Blood Gulch, by fucking with the Reds and Blues. So, my God. And with that, we reach the final portion of this review, which I know it's really long already. I'm sorry, guys. I know I ramble a lot. I really hope you guys don't mind the rambles in between my reactions, because there's just a lot that I want to talk about. But this final portion here is going to be my predictions and kind of overall thoughts going into Season 9, Project Freelancer, which is going to be my Season 9 and 10 experience, and that is all that I'm going to be able to deliver for you guys between now and the end of the summer, leading into, Ruby Volume 6, but then coming back with the Chorus Trilogy and whatnot. So I have no idea how long this is too, so for those of you guys who are still here trucking along, I definitely appreciate you guys' input. I appreciate you guys being invested in understanding my thought process of RVB and the story and everything that I've been able to piece together. So, right now, it's a little 50-50 for me, because initially, I had the theory that Project Freelancer Seasons 9 and 10 was going to be a prequel story. And the reason I thought that was a number of reasons. Number one, currently in real time, like currently in the most recent future that we are in right now with Season 8, Project Freelancer has been disbanded. The director, Dr. Leonard Church, is now the former director, and apparently he's on trial for this whole AI experimentation thing, and the chairman of the UNSC needs Epsilon in order to convict him of that. So that's the big reason why he wants Epsilon. Most of the freelancers are dead. Most of them are dead or MIA, or we've never seen or heard from them, and so there's a lot of missing links there. All of the artificial intelligence that were initially created for Project Freelancer are also dead. So, like the only ones that are in effect is Epsilon and Tex, but they're trapped in the capture unit. And so, initially I thought that maybe that would have been the case. It would have been a prequel story, talking about the origins of Dr. Leonard Church's plans for creating Project Freelancer, and eventually what became the rise and the fall of the project as a whole. And a part of me feels like this is going to be taking place in real time as well. I don't know if it's going to be in the real world or if it's going to be within the capture unit, because of the ending, the finale ending of Season 8, with Epsilon talking about how, You know, he feels like this entire time he's been chasing Tex. He's been kind of forcing himself onto her, always trying to go after her, always trying to be with her, always trying to, you know, make things right between them both. And that in turn could end up be what is causing to push her away. You know, he mentions like, you know, a good memory, a good love is kind of like a good memory. You know, when it's there and you know it's there, it can be all you think about. But if you force it, you know, eventually that's what leads to push it away. So I think what he's doing is he's going to kind of reset himself. He's back in Blood Gulch. He is the alpha, and he's kind of going through all of those recollected memories of the stories told to him by Caboose, and he's basically reliving his life as the original Church inside this capture unit, knowing that Tex is around, and all he has to do is just play his cards. All he has to do is just be somewhere where he knows that she'll find him, and eventually, you know, like he says, they always have a way of finding each other, which I thought that was pretty sweet. So, Epsilon's goal right now is to try to just get to Tex, and, you know, it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, it's going to take, you know, him just, like, living his life in a memory. And you know what he says? You know, he's like, you know, if you have to live the rest of your life in a memory, you might as well make it a good one. And he's got some pretty damn good memories based on the experiences that we've seen from Blood Gulch. So I'm rooting for him. I'm very excited about that. I just don't know if we'll ever, if it's going to be from his perspective. Is it going to be from the reality's perspective? Because, you know, Washington, you know, basically faked his own death, and he's now on the blue team, and they're back in Blood Gulch with the Valhalla, I think. They're back in Valhalla with the Reds. And, you know what I mean? Like, what does that mean for the current scenario, the current situation of no Epsilon unit, you know, no Epsilon unit for the UNSC chairman, no convicted individuals. You know, Washington's not going back to jail. You know what I mean? It kind of leaves things open-ended, like what's going to happen now. You know what I mean? So, and what's going to happen to Epsilon and Tex after they find each other? Are they going to be trapped in that capture unit forever? So I'm kind of wondering that too. But a big part of me still feels like this is going to be a prequel story, just because of the fact of there's still a lot of artificial intelligence that we really don't know about, and there's still a lot of freelancers that we never really got full explanation of. We didn't really get to see them all that much. Like I said, most of the ones that we have seen are already dead. And a big thing too that I want to talk about, and this is kind of like the last thing that I want to address before kind of giving my overall thoughts, is this moment right here.
Washington!
So during that reaction, I mentioned, like, holy shit, the director is remembering Washington. And a lot of people in the comments were like, no, like, Epsilon is remembering Washington. That's why, like, Epsilon was paired with Washington. But my initial thought to that whole concept was like, it wasn't the fact of why was Epsilon mad. Because Epsilon has a lot of reasons to be mad. The dude was tortured. The dude was kind of like his own kind were turned against him, and he was basically living a living hell until he ended up killing himself. Or my question initially was, why is Epsilon mad at Washington? Why would seeing Washington trigger Epsilon to get angry to the point of activating his laser? That's the big thing that I was wondering. Because as we currently know right now, Washington, aka David, you know, Church, aka Dr. Leonard Church, and Allison, I don't know if there's a triangle thing going on between them. I don't know if Washington knew Allison in the past, and because immediately afterwards they were like, they'll find her. So it's like his memories are unraveling, and I'm wondering if Washington is more part of Epsilon or the director's past than we know. And maybe that's why he was upset with Washington being around. It's like, hey, I know who you are, but I don't see why Epsilon would be mad that Washington was partnered with him. Unless Washington was giving Epsilon shit or giving him a hard time after the whole process happened, which eventually led him to kill himself in Washington's head. But as of right now, there's no probable cause for me to suspect that Epsilon should be mad at Washington for anything. For absolutely anything. If anything, Epsilon should be mad at the director, or I guess in a way himself. So that was the initial thing of, like, I was just curious. I was like, why is Epsilon mad at Washington of all people? Unless something happened behind the scenes that we don't know about, which is very easily the case. So overall, those are my just general thoughts and my predictions moving forward. I do think Project Freelancer will be a prequel story about the rise and fall and origins of Dr. Leonard Church's original plans for the project. We're obviously going to see a bunch of AI and freelancers, and that's what this portion here that I have written. As I rewatch the entirety of RVB, I kind of hyper-focused a little bit more on the freelancers. So we have York, aka Foxtrot 12, who was the holder of the Delta artificial intelligence. We have Tex, who's based on Allison, who is the Beta, who had Omega. We have Washington, aka David, who had Epsilon. He is also known as Recovery 1 and Prisoner 619B. We have Wyoming, aka Reginald, who was the AI holder of Gamma. We had North Dakota, who was a boy, and South Dakota, who was a girl. Unfortunately, South Dakota didn't get an AI, while North Dakota got Theta. And I guess the whole scenario there was to see how these twins would react if one person got an AI and the other didn't. So, and, you know, as you can tell, you know, at least from South Dakota's perspective, her brother eventually got killed, or she basically set her brother up to die. I don't know if it's because she wanted an AI that badly or whatever the case, but, you know, she got hers eventually. There was a little hint of Agent Florida, but they said they were like, there's 50 states, 50 freelancers. Oh, you mean 49? They were like, poor Florida. So I don't know what the hell's up with him. Hopefully we'll find out, him or her. We'll have to find out eventually. We have Carolina, who had 2 unidentified artificial intelligence, so I don't know what kind of AI she had under her belt. We have Agent Main, aka the Meta, again, unidentified. I don't know what AI he had, but the only one that is named here that I could consider that he had was Sigma, because, you know, what's his name? Washington mentioned that Sigma was creativity. I just don't know if that was Meta's artificial intelligence or if that was one of the 2 that Carolina had. We have CT, who apparently is abbreviated for Connecticut, who's also a freelancer. Don't know if this one got any artificial intelligence. Also, apparently CT is a girl, based on what Washington mentioned in the desert when they dug her up or whatever, and it was like, CT, what is she doing here? So I was really surprised by that, because initially CT sounded like a guy, so I don't know if it was a female with a voice enhancer, kind of like what Tex had initially. So we have to see about that. And then obviously Church, aka the true Alpha AI, who is based off of Dr. Leonard Church, who is the director of this entire project, this entire fiasco. And then I kind of also broke down the Alpha AI's fragmentations, which is he's the original, Beta is based on the failures, Delta is the logic, Gamma is the deceit, Omega is the rage, Epsilon is the memory, Sigma is the creativity. We don't know what Theta is, and we don't know what the other 2 artificial intelligence are that, supposedly were a part of Carolina. So we also have to wait and see what those AI were, to kind of get the full picture or the full piece of all of the fragmentations of the true Alpha AI, which I don't know if we're going to get Epsilon versions of all of these AI, because that it seems to be possible now. Like Epsilon fragments, so Epsilon Church, Epsilon Beta, Epsilon Gamma, Epsilon Omega, Epsilon Delta, so on and so forth. So obviously we'll have to wait and see. And lastly, the last thing that I put in caps here and circled, put all of this, the cycle. I have no idea what the fuck that means. I just know that Delta mentioned that he's unraveling his memories to figure out something, and if he's not stopped, the cycle will start again. So I don't know if the cycle to create more artificial intelligence will happen again, because it seems like that is potentially the case. That seems like what is going to happen now. He already created Tex again, and eventually it can unravel into all of the AI that we've gotten so far. But I just don't know what the cycle is. Obviously, we might have to get a little bit more information. Maybe season 9 and 10 will give us a little bit more of that. And hopefully, at some point, I don't know if we're going to get it in the past. I don't know if we're going to get it in the present. But I really want to be able to see Dr. Leonard Church, if he's still alive, if he's still out there somewhere, and kind of piece together this whole story. And understanding what his motives were, why he did what he did. Obviously, he did it for his lost love, but was it more to that? Was it more than just that? Was he trying to just rekindle what he had lost? Or was it like Epsilon said, was he trying to save a memory, or was he trying to get it out of his head? You know, everything else in the air is speculation, but you know, at this point. But overall, those are my overall thoughts, opinions, theories, predictions, and speculations for Season 8 of Red vs. Blue, the end of the Recollection Trilogy. Like I said, a lot of my predictions are set up for Season 9 to be a prequel story. We obviously have to wait and see, but I'm very much excited for it. I am really sorry for rambling and just kind of just going off on my tangents as I usually do, but there was a lot to be said, and there was a lot of things that I wanted to mention. There was a lot of things I wanted to show appreciation for. Like I said, again, Monty Ohm's animation, Jeff Williams' music, Bernie's storytelling, attention to detail, foreshadowing, context clues, and everything else in between. Kind of putting together everything regarding Epsilon and Tex, how she ended up coming back, and obviously kind of setting up for all of the scenarios and things that I've been thinking on moving forward to Season 9, and also my predictions for Season 9 and beyond. So, with all of that said, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this prediction / review / discussion of my thoughts on Season 8. Leave your thoughts, all of your thoughts, in entirety. Please, no spoilers in the comment section. Also, let me know if any of you guys would mind being mods for future Red vs. Blue videos to keep me spoiler free moving on with the rest of my reactions to RVB. I'd really appreciate that. And once this goes up on YouTube, I will see you guys next week for the initial reaction startup for Season 9 Project Freelancer. So thank you guys so much. Again, thank you for your support. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.